of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Charlie Bailey. Here. Brian Ham.
Here.
Dan Holloway.
Here.
John Kern.
Here.
Bruce Schweitzer. Here. Susan Morman. Here. Mark Kelly.
Here. Quorum being present, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed.
I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We have no public comment? Okay. Next is consent agenda.
I said, does anybody have any questions or comments?
We generally don't know that.
Move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have information items, re-entry plan update.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, just a reminder, we're in a global pandemic. Sometimes careful that. And as we continue to work through that, we continue to keep our priorities, I think, the appropriate priorities. So first priority, as always, is health and safety of our students and staff. Following that very closely is the teaching and learning aspects of schools while we're here. So we continue to hold those priorities high. We also continue to face monumental challenges due to COVID, and also the public health guidelines that we follow, particularly as it relates to business disruption. So currently, we have 88 students, 16 staff in isolation or quarantine in our school district. Mr. Morrison later is going to summarize the impact of each COVID case and how not only does it keep students and staff from school, but also severely taxes our employees and our team members in the contact tracing process. So I want to create a picture for the board about the realities that we're facing from that aspect. Big news, since we've seen you last, school started, and we have students and teachers in class. And I have to tell you, despite all these ongoing challenges, just the simplest of business operations, it's great to see kids in class. So we have 100% capacity in elementary, and we're following the hybrid schedule at secondary. And we also are operating KSD Connect at around 13 or 14% of our normal enrollment is in on the enrollment numbers, we're pretty flat enrollment wise, really close to the numbers that we had last year, despite, and if you count the Connect kids, which we do. And we've seen somewhere around 50 to 60 students have left the school district more than normally would to go to homeschool or private school. So with those numbers, I would make some assumptions that we continue to grow as a school district, despite the pandemic. Even though our enrollment numbers are really pretty flat right now. But as kids have entered into our school, it's been a little different. We shared a video with the board and the board update about the safety precautions they gave. I think it painted a really nice picture. With Sonia Love created that video in collaboration with the school staff. But it showed that not only do we have a lot of safety precautions in place, but also it still looks like school. So we're still greeting kids and teaching kids, and it's good. And it's really great to have them back. So with all these challenges, our teachers and support staff and administrators have they've just been outstanding to give the environment that our kids need. And regardless of the great challenges that we're facing, when you walk into those classrooms, you really can't, you don't see it. That's not what you see. You see students learning, you see students loving being back in school. Well, Mr. Woods and Mrs. Kopp are going to provide some updates about how things are going going. From, Mr. Woods is a secondary expert, middle school principal, and Ms. Kopp is with a K-12 perspective on both the in-person and the online experience. So that's a little bit of an overview of what we'll provide for Reed Creek this evening. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Morrison to share with us about some of the experiences we've been having with contact tracing.
So probably one of your questions is, what happens when we get that information in a positive case? Is to take that back a step further, is within the team, we had to help provide some supports for administrators and also nursing staff. So with that, we developed an internal response team, and that entails Kearney Hatfield from the district nurse, Sonia Love, communications, Dave Schwarzenbach with activities, myself. And that allows us to also have kind of a backups in case that we're out. And so one of the things that our administrators have learned within the flow chart and the process is once they get that information that we have a positive case, whether staff or student, their first call is to the response team. So that they need to get a hold of one of us, and so that before they start into their investigation, so we're aware. So Sonia can take a look at what she needs to put together for communications. Karen needs to look at from the nursing side of, obviously she's going to be in contact with Clay County Public Health. Dave's looking through activities, and I'm looking through the lens of what are everything we need to do with the investigation. So once that investigation happens and we have, for example, that positive case, we're looking at everything. We're collecting class schedules, seating charts, activity, bus, and then we're looking at all those pieces. Now we're going back with teachers, and we're doing interviews with them, each one, saying, okay, tell me about what does your classroom look like? Okay, everybody was seated. For an example, the hybrid schedule has helped tremendously, because when we have half the kids and you have, say, 24 desks, and you have, if we're just doing simple math, 12 kids, we can distance them apart. And so that you can see, let's say, for example, they've labeled the desk, two desks are together, one has a red dot, one has a blue dot. I'm just going through our investigation. One of our investigations is A is a red dot, B is blue dot's a B. So they know. We can measure that out and say they've been physically distanced. Here's what the activity looked like. They weren't in a continuous, or as we look at that, less than 6 feet for 15 minutes accumulated in that day. So that's a credit to not only our administrators, but our teachers, that they're adhering to that physical distancing. And that's tough in education. And that's a tough call, because we're used to being with those kids, trying to help them as much as possible. So as we go through and we collect all those pieces of data, go through all those interviews with them, then we sit down and meet together and make sure that we have everything. And really that lift, by the time that you get that positive call to the time that you're saying, I think that I have everybody identified that's a close contact, that sometimes is in the neighborhood of anywhere from a couple hours to 4 hours.
So you looked at all that in 4 hours? All that information?
Trying to get that done in shorter stuff. But again, every time you do an investigation, it gets a little bit quicker and a little bit easier with that. I don't say, I shouldn't use the word easier. The process gets a little bit quicker. And really, for another thing for the response team is it's good for us to bounce and make sure that we've got everything covered. Okay, did that kid ride the bus, yes or no? That's a big question that we run into this week. And did they ride the bus, yes or no? And what does that look like? Because some buses, even though we've asked for parents to bring them, some are a little more crowded in the elementary than what we wanted, but that's okay. We're still providing transportation to them. In our secondary routes, they're a little more spaced together, that we can say that it actually looked like what the CDC put together, like the zigzag back and forth by chance for us. So then once we have all that information, we have the close contacts, we've got to develop that script, because we've got to get a contact with those parents that are close contacts. and let them know. We want to know that, we want to tell them that, hey, here's when we know that we have a positive case. Your child has been identified as a close contact. You'll probably be getting a follow-up call from Clay County Public Health. And they're gonna ask you things. What does quarantine look like? What is instruction gonna look like for my children during this time frame? And then we're looking at also too, once we've made those contacts, then we want to get communication out. You can see that the amount of communication that we've had every day this week, right? From the weekend to today, we've had a communication. I think that the transparency that we have displayed in this, that we are being transparent, our parents are being transparent with us saying, I'm positive, I know my kids are in close contact, they've got a quarantine. So our hope is that what we've done with transparency in this, that they're being transparent with us and helping us out in that. So those are things, so we're not always done, as we learned this weekend, right? That even though we went through, and by the time we got investigation, by the time we started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by the time we had communication at 5 o'clock. Okay, so that's just showing you how much that we're taking the time to get that right, that it is a big lift. I mean, we saw communication today. We didn't have secondary students in today, so we had an opportunity. If we probably had secondary students in today, we're probably still working with this a little bit. So that becomes difficult, especially when if you add in like piece of activities and they're positive and going through all that, we know those challenges. So sometimes Clay County, when they have their investigators follow up this close contacts, as we found, when somebody becomes symptomatic, we have to look at that the whole class has a quarantine for that. So there's more follow-up on what we did. Did we do anything wrong? No, we didn't do anything wrong because we are verifying with Clay County. We are calling them. I'm calling them. You know, Karen Hatfield is calling them and saying, here's what we have. Here's all that. And so they're taking us through any other pieces that we need to look at, any rock that we haven't turned over. But again, a big piece for us on our side is the hybrid model, being able to distance those kids out. Teachers have done a tremendous job of following that direction and helping us out. And so fortunately, in some situations we haven't had to have staff that have been identified as that close contact with that. So those are just all those pieces when we start from the positive case to get to the communication that's out there. And the administrative team is doing an excellent job. Our nurses are doing a tremendous job. It's a lot, because we're all educators, we're not public health. We've stated that but I think we are all putting this on our resume now. So this is something we can do and feel confident about it. And it's tough with Clay County because, as we know, some things are ever changing. You know, if we look at the last week and this week, Children's Mercy's document has been updated just a little bit, but some tweaks. When we get some things that, for example, a month ago, we were not getting the greatest news, like we could have teachers out for a long period of time, but then we had to define, hey, here's isolation, and this is what quarantine means. So it's trying to help with this. And we continue to work with Clay County as well in that regard. We'd like to see that we can keep our staff active. As I told Clay County today, our job is we're trying to keep kids in school, we're trying to keep teachers in school. Let's work together on this so that we have a partnership, but still trying to keep everybody safe. That's the number one thing, to keep them safe. So, you know, if you see an administrator, you see a nurse, thank them because they're doing a tremendous job of keeping our education going for our kids. So. Happy to answer any questions about that process.
How about the use of subs when someone has to isolate or quarantine any of the teachers or staff? Are you still feeling pretty good that we've got?
Right now, we've been low.
Yeah,
in the uses of stuff. So right now, we've had everything covered.
okay.
Everybody's ready to go back to school.
You know, our sub pool is a little lower than what it's been. And there's opportunities, as you know, we discussed earlier last month, that DESI has taken that, if you don't have 60 hours, you can do 20 hours of training through Frontline and get that certification. My hope was that we had contacted some colleges and their education students, if they were virtual or online, that they would hop in and be some subs for us. That hasn't quite happened yet, but we're still pushing for that. So we'll see. So, yeah, that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on.
Can I give you some feedback as far as the communication to your stakeholders,
Yeah.
parents? They love the communication and that piece that you guys are giving. I got a text before I came in here to make that same comment. So I know you guys are working day and night, and I didn't know you were working so fast. So obviously I'm impressed, Jeff, with you and Dave and Karen and everybody. And I'll tell you that everybody thinks that you guys are doing a great job. And you know, hats off to you. Doesn't mean you get stopped, but hats off to you.
Well, that's a hats off to administrators. Mr. Woods in here, he's had to deal with some things, and his administrative team's done well.
Well, you put the process together, so.
Yeah, and I agree, I think the whole team, I mean, everything I've heard, different things, I've heard anybody disagree at all, everybody's just like, some people like, we let, you know, Jeff around, we heard, you know, wasn't happening as much, but they're glad it's taken care of when it happened.
I just have two questions. Is Clay County staff like they need to be to deal with all this?
Yeah, great.
Just curious.
They've added to their staff, so they've assigned people that are to districts now. Before we had just Ashley Wagner kind of heading that up, and so she has a staff that reports to us. And so, for example, they've even done a better thing for us. We have a weekly meeting. Just Kearney has with Ashley Wagner and our assigned person, Lexi Bertesini. So we have an hour that our administrators can, and usually our administrators are very busy, but I try to log in and able to ask questions, and it's all specific to Kearney. And so those pieces are all specific that we can talk to them and say, did we look at this right? Is there anything wrong? Because I think that's a tough piece is, you know, when you spend so much time with it and then they contact and say, hey, you got to do this. I feel like you did something wrong, but they're just like, this is our recommendation, but when can people say it? So
On the flip side, Caroline, I was just gonna answer a little bit, they're hiring, they're still looking.
They're still
for
hiring.
Yeah, just because I know that from somebody that, yeah.
So my second question, you said that you felt there's good transparency on both sides. If a building notices that a student is out for a few days, are you all following up on that to see if there may be an absence that might be COVID related that's not being reported, or have we had things like that that we're concerned about?
I think they're probably more aware this year. I mean, teachers have always, you know, when we said self-assessment, you know, looking, so teachers have always looked at kids and go, that kid's looks pretty bright and he needs to go. I mean, I think they're even more aware, like, all right, you know.
Someone hasn't been here for a few days.
Yeah, someone hasn't been here, or, you know,
Yeah.
kind of noticed that the challenge right now is it's allergy season. That's our challenge right
And
now.
to add on to September, we start flu vaccines, and so flu vaccines are going live, and then some of the similar symptoms, people are gonna cross over as we move into the flu season too, so it's just gonna be a little.
Yeah, so it's been a big challenge, but, you know, I think also too, our staff have been good too, and that's a credit, again, to our administrators, say, don't wait. Like, if it's happening on the weekend, shoot me a text, give me a call, let me know so that we can get on top of this as quick as possible. And our administrative team is good, that they let myself know, Dave know, Karen know, so that we can be prepared. Even if it's precautionary, that's okay. I mean, with the situation that we dealt with today, we started having some things in motion prior to, like, okay, kind of aware of this, let's just start collecting, just in case. You know, fingers crossed and everything is not working, that's fine. We know how to do that, but on the other side, we know it takes some work. So, And it's nice every time that, the piece that every time we do this, then it helps our team that somebody else can be a reliable resource going through this. So that, again, the best thing that we can do is question ourselves and say, did you look at this? Don't forget about the bus, don't forget about activities, just going back through every action.
So when or if the children get quarantined, are they automatically set up for online learning then at that point? Do we have a contact, or do they go straight to KSD teachers for the quarantine for the 2 weeks, or do they just continue the hybrid?
They are,
Not the hybrid, but
if they're at the secondary level, then they're in the hybrid schedule.
Right.
If they're elementary, they're still in their classroom, they'll still deal with their classroom teacher,
okay.
and their classroom teacher will post assignments and do morning meetings with them, so
Okay.
keep them involved in the class.
Okay.
I think that might be a good transition to start talking about some of the instructional things. So Mr. Morrison has described very well the contact tracing practice. I think that he was a little humble in his descriptions. For example, I know Saturday that they started working that case about 8 o'clock in the morning, and the communication wasn't all completed until about 6:30 Saturday. So that's a little bit more than 4 hours. But I think we're getting better, but it's just a huge amount of work. And Mr. Morrison and our team have done a really great job of using some systems thinking to try to accomplish the work better and better each time we go through. So kudos to the team. But meanwhile, we have this thing called school. It's why we're here. And so the challenges alluded to earlier, Mr. Woods is going to talk about challenges and opportunities and how things are going at your building with your teachers and across secondary schools.
Well, if you love challenges, 2020 is the year. I guess the first thing to say is kind of what Dr. Miller stated is it's great to have kids in the building. And it's been since March 13th. And that's why everybody gets into the business. It's not for all the other stuff. It's to deal with kids. And I don't think if you ask anybody that is in the building at any level, they'd say differently. It's very uplifting. So that's the biggest takeaway, I think. Obviously, at the secondary level, we're doing a variety of different things between the hybrid model and KSD Connect. Now we're into this whole nother mode, which you kind of alluded to, of quarantine. What do we do for quarantine students? Which has added another layer to the onion. But it's been great having the kids there. Some of our worries that we thought were going to be our hardest thing have been no-brainers. So there's this big concern about what are we going to do with the masks? Our kids amazingly have worn the masks, from 3 to 5 year olds that are in this building to high school kids. It's been amazing. They don't argue about it. They get tired of them. They get wet by the end of the day because of just breathing and stuff. That's not even an issue. Kids have been great. At the secondary level, and I'm speaking on most of these points in conjunction with Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Justison as well, but kids have gone with the flow. We've got kids lunchtime. They're so spaced out in the classroom as much as we can, and then lunch is a social time. Right now, there's 2 at the table, and there's certain dots on the table that you have to sit on so we have space. They've rolled with it so much. I think they're very appreciative of just being here. I think they want school too. And we're 6 days in, right? So unfortunately, there's a lot of training that goes into those first 6 days. And so we're going over processes, how to use the platforms. And in my building, for example, we have students come from the elementary schools, which are pretty familiar with like Google Classrooms. They have no idea what an email is. So just teaching someone how to email, when that's how they get every single assignment, is a notification via email. It seems simple to us, but it's little things like that. I think a challenge, there's a handful of challenges, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer in this, but it's overwhelming. Our staff were very appreciative of the prep time, and they've worked hard. But once you get into it, it's a lot. And if you know a teacher, I bet you heard, it's tough. They're working and glad to see them. A part of the satisfaction of teaching is seeing those processes and little things that you wouldn't even think of, but the masks, you don't ever see kids smile. You know, they come in school, you don't ever see smiles. When you help a kid out, you know, you always see a smile or a thing, because a lot of them don't speak very much, at least at our level, they're timid. But you can see it on their face, they light up, oh, that makes sense now. So that's kind of a hard transition from the social emotional standpoint of teaching. But then it's a lot. Going through the quarantines the last couple of days with a couple of different situations, it's been, I can't imagine the number we would have if we had full classrooms. But trying to manage kids every other day, you're basically teaching a lesson in class, live in person. You're creating something similar or different completely for the kids who are at home. A lot of teachers have a virtual classroom which they're teaching. So there's 3 different things that and that's if you only have one classroom. We have some high school teachers that, if you look at their schedule, because of the way that virtuals have popped in, you know, they have 20 different Google Classrooms that they have to go into because of outliers and singletons in classes. So they're working hard, and if you see them, I would just give them as much praise as you can, because I think they need a lot of that. They're working hard, and they're going to fight through as much as they can. And I think we'll all get better. We will. But it's a lot. It's easy to think that you can get ready in 3 weeks, but when you don't know what you don't know, that makes it difficult.
So we talked about social emotional needs of the kids, and you're talking a lot about teachers, right? And we all here have teachers, and we know how hard and taxing this is on them. How are we addressing or assessing their social emotional needs? Like, as a principal, I'm sure you got all your teachers, and you kind of know how they're doing, and you kind of go around the room to see how everybody's doing. Are we doing anything other than that part to just make sure that we're looking after our teachers as well?
2 parts of that.
Okay.
So the first part of that was something that we actually did bring in during those 3 weeks.
Okay.
Each building, there was a 2-hour session for every staff within the building, attending to the social emotional needs of the staff members. Okay. And wow, I'm glad we had it in, because I can imagine some of the states that some of them would be in at this point. But I think, and I can't speak to the other buildings. I feel pretty comfortable that I could, but I'm not going to.
Right.
But like with my building, it's just talking to them, and the teachers know that you can't fix it, right? As administrators, we want to be fixers. That's just kind of the nature of our job, and that's tough for us because we can't fix this, right? So I try, I'm not the kindest, gentlest person in the world, a lot of you know me, but, I feel like,
Don't
the best
understate
thing.
there.
Exactly.
Don't understate yourself.
I think what I've tried to do, whether that's successful or not, and I think I'd speak for every, administrator in the district, is, just trying to support our staff and, ask them if there's anything I can do. And I know that what they're gonna tell me, and say, no, we just gotta figure it out, we gotta do it. Sometimes you can give some thought processes, at least think you do that help. But I think it's just keeping in touch. I did a little survey of my staff so they could kind of just give me a gauge of where some things were, some good and bad, the ugly type of thing. I did that yesterday, the day before, I can't remember. Because you don't have time. You know, you're walking around and you have 45, 50 people in your building, and to really have a conversation, it takes some minutes. And,
Right.
then you get a foreign situation. So that's what I'm trying to do, whether that's right or wrong. And that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
So only day 6, so you probably can't answer this, but maybe we'll have some observations by our next board meeting. The difference between like the kids and the age that you have in middle school up to more like junior, senior, how they're handling the hybrid situation. Kids have got to be self-driven on those days when they're home, and that I think it'll be interesting to see how we think the different age groups are handling that.
Yeah, I think the age has a lot to do with it. Like I said, some of our 6th grade is such a very difficult transition. A lot of you guys know that you've had come through the middle school and all the way through, but that's the beauty of having some high school kids. They're more driven. But I think human nature too, it's difficult to self-motivate yourself when you're all by yourself. And I think a struggle that we have no control over, and this is one of the things we talk about with our teachers too, is with the virtual students, is you're interacting virtually with your students with KSD Connect or during a Zoom time with your kids, and the interruptions and the breaks because of the internet. We have no control over it, right? But that's a real problem. And so you could have a kid or student struggling and trying to articulate that, and it's garbled. And in the case of a KSD Connect classroom, you've got 30 some odd kids in there. You can't slow down, so you kind of have to say, okay, why don't you send that to me in an email, and I'll see if I can address it, but we're going to have to keep going. So that's just hard, because that's really not how we're wired as teachers. And I think the hardest thing on our teachers, ultimately, is they care, and they have a standard of pride in their work that they do, and that they're used to doing, a standard of quality, and it's nearly impossible to do it when you're juggling all these different things. I think that's ultimately the hardest thing for them is their expectations of themselves. They're not to the point where they can meet those yet, I think, for the ones that are most frustrated. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for all that you guys do. And I told Dr. Miller this earlier today, but my middle child has struggled. She's 7, and she's manifested some behavioral issues during this 6-month period. And I have rapidly watched them disappear from her going back into her routine of going to school. And it's amazing how quickly that has changed her whole dynamic, and the behavior has been gone for a week now. And it was pretty significant and problematic. She would react, we would react, we didn't know how to handle it, and literally going back to school has solved it. And I hope for many other parents that were seeing this is the same thing. So where you said you can't always fix things, I think you guys are fixing more things than maybe what you know, because for me, you fix a huge problem.
Dr. Miller, did I address everything you kind of got them to scramble there, so.
All that I hoped you to address and more. You did a great job. And we heard of some of the academic things, but also I think you hear that Mr. Woods exemplifies and he's just a great example of our administrative team and what you would hear and see from our other principals and assistant principals too. The care and concern for our teachers and support is really great. I think that he nailed it when he talks about administrators being fixers and how hard that is for all of our building leaders right now. So now, Scott.
Well, I was going to go over a little bit about the 3 weeks before we brought kids in. We got so much done during that time, so thank you for allowing us to have that time. So many of the teachers have expressed they don't know where we would have been had we not had that time to prepare. We are so thankful for that. You know, we got in the 14 tech sessions within just a few days, you know, so teachers could learn the Google Classroom and Screencast-O-Matic and Google Sites, and our technology coach, Ashley Weaver, she ran herself ragged to, you know, get everybody trained on those things. She just did a great job. And then we also had our reading interventionists. Those two ladies also did an incredible amount of PD over those days to work on essential standards. They also did flip lessons. They do so much more than reading intervention. They're amazing. I mean, this boardroom was busy with their PD sessions, you know, for days. They just had those elementary teachers coming in here constantly for PD. And then they were able to go back to their buildings, try to use it with the technology and, you know, kind of merge it all together. The secondary did a great job working in their content areas, trying to, you know, again, put that content with the technology so they could roll everything out. We also did, Bart mentioned, we had the Compassion Without Fatigue. Our behavior interventionist that works with the district went to each building, did the 2-hour session, and as I have gone around and visited with the teachers, many of them have come back and expressed they are using the tools from that session. You know, they've learned that they've got to have balance. I will tell you right now, not all of those teachers have that balance because they are working themselves ragged right now, but that's because they have such high expectations. They just can't back down on those expectations. I mean, that's why Kearney is so good. Our teachers have incredible expectations. So anyway, thank you so much for giving us the gift of time to prepare for that. You know, then we have kids and we hope everything works perfectly the way we had planned. Our teachers have created incredible lessons, both face-to-face as well as online lessons, but they have run into some issues along the way. You know, we found some things out, found out that Chromebooks can't record or do Screencast-O-Matic the way we needed it to. So, you know, we got all the teachers webcams. You know, the KSD Connect teachers couldn't do everything they needed with Chromebooks, so got them their laptops. We are really trying to get things in the hands of the teachers that they need so they can be successful. Now when I go and I ask the teachers, and very much like what Bart said, we say, you know, what do you need? What can I do for you? And there's nothing else they need. They just need to learn to, you know, streamline it, and they're going to get faster at making these online lessons. Right now it is a task. but they're going to get better. They're thrilled to have kids back in the classroom. They wish they had all of their kids 5 days a week. That would be way better, but that's just not where we're at right now. I think they're just doing an amazing job. One thing they're doing is the collaboration among the teachers. One of them will find out a way to do something and they share it with everyone. You know, you really get the sense that everybody wants everyone to be successful. So it's been an incredible collaborative environment with the teachers. They're doing a great job. They need to give themselves some grace and know that not everything is going to be perfect right off the bat, but I told them I think they're the best and they're gonna do it better than anybody else is going to do it, you know, and then they just need to not be so hard on themselves. But it's hard, but we're getting there.
Well, I think, yep, like I said before, and I'll keep saying this for at least 2 more years, maybe 3. I'm new, so I'm still learning quite a lot. But we're a very lean district, very lean. And people just continue to step up to the plate. They give more, they sacrifice more, they serve more. That's just what we do. And we're really proud to do it. We're really proud to do it. I mean, it's a gift to be able to do that. And our kids in the community deserve it. They really do. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that what's happening, how people are working for our students in the community. And you know, and we're looking at each day as that we're in class with kids as a gift, because you never know. I mean, we found that out in March that, you know, we didn't get to come back to school for a while, so we have a different perspective on things. So we're looking at each day as a gift and trying to treasure that. I'd have to say that I think the current workload is unsustainable, and just it's really more work than people can manage over the long run. But there's a big but in there. We all, and I think that all 3 of our presenters have alluded to this, is we're in the middle of a really steep learning curve. And so there's hope in the end of that, because we know at the beginning, and when you're learning new things, that things are harder and more mechanical, and you've got to work it all out. But after we have more time to work through those things through engagement and collaboration that we've discussed tonight, we'll be able to make this work really effectively for our students, and we'll be stronger than ever. This is a great time. We have a common shared purpose. It's really easy to identify. It's really hard to argue about. It's right here. We've got this really difficult situation with COVID-19, the pandemic, and so this is a great time to come together and work together, lean in, and make some things happen for our students and community, and make this a great thing. But wanted to take some time tonight just to acknowledge that I don't know that I'm certain we can't ask for people to work any harder. I don't think it's possible. So just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you all for your updates. Appreciate all the work you're doing. Appreciate keeping us updated on what's going on. I know it's an evolving challenge, something you represented. I mean, what we're talking about, Barb with quarantines, just Morrison with new cases, how we're teaching in both of those environments. It's a real challenge. We really appreciate everybody's dedication to that. Next is financials.
So our financial situation continues to be a challenge that we're looking at. So we've overall the end of last fiscal year, this fiscal year, we're short about $1.9 million in revenue that we would have normally expected. And we've expended over $500,000 in COVID-related expenses that we typically wouldn't have had to spend on those things. CARES has helped some with that. We've received around $400,000 in CARES funding, so that almost puts us at even with our additional expenditures, but still leaves us close to $2 million short of where we were. So understanding the situation with great stewardship, because of great stewardship that the board and administration have exhibited over time in Kearney, our fund balance has been able to help weather that without making major program cuts. But the budget that the board passed is a deficit budget. And we had originally projected a end of year fund balance this year of 18%. Okay, so that makes superintendents and CFOs very nervous and board members very nervous. So we've been watching that extremely closely. So normally in a typical fiscal year, September is the first big payroll, and it is this year as well. You see all the changes in salary and those sorts of things. It's a great time to adjust for what our expenditures are for salary. Typically, we get really tight on revenues because we're also receiving our first, hopefully, our regular payment from DESI, and so that gives us a good feel for what we're going to get for the rest of the year. So normally this time of year, we work on the revenue side, and the expenditures we wait until, for the most part, wait until later in the year. So I don't know if you've noticed this about school budgets typically, but what you're projecting in September is usually lower. And then by the time, as long as nothing catastrophic happens throughout the rest of the year, what you end at the end of the fiscal year is generally higher. Okay, so this year I want to be really clear that because of our situation, we felt it's important to be more accurate on where we are right now, as accurate as possible. And so Ginger and our administrative team have really looked at our budgeted expenditures and cut those as close as possible to what we think is actually going to happen. So it's a lot closer to what we think is going to happen. It's a more accurate prediction right now, which means we likely won't see, unless something really great happens, we're not going to see, we're predicting 20% right now, and it's going to come in at 23% later. That's not likely. As a matter of fact, that puts us in a place where potentially we're going to be lower. Hopefully we're going to be accurate, and maybe we might be a bit higher, just depending on things that change throughout the budget year. So that's what is presented here is our fiscals and financials and what we think is going to occur as of this moment throughout this fiscal year.
You think that your deviation, like plus or minus on 20, is like what, 2 to 3% either direction, barring any uncatastrophic events that you could, I mean, I know this is a moderately conservative budget, but I mean, are we pretty close to this, or what would you say your deviation from this would be either direction?
I agree with what you're saying.
2 to 3%, okay.
And hopefully, next week we'll get better information. I think
Okay.
the proration may be closer to what they estimated before. August it was not.
Okay.
It's 74%, the goal is 94%.
Okay. So,
It would seem to me that with what the presentation we just heard a few minutes ago, 6 days in, and while we want to be as accurate as possible, that we still have a lot of unknowns, and when we're another month in, there perhaps are some things that are unsustainable, whether it's staff loads or things like that. I think we just need to be mindful that it's still a moving target, and we may need to hire more staff to make sure we get done. And when I say that, I don't even know what I mean, but we may need to identify other resources, maybe is a better way to make sure that we are supporting. Now, while that may have to come with cuts other places, but it just seems to me that we're still dealing with some unknowns, and you guys are doing an amazing job. But after 6 days in what's happened, I think we're looking at a lot of unknowns. And I think we, as a board, we need to be prepared for that in the future. And you guys are doing great work, and I know you'll give us good information as we have to maybe look at some of those decisions, but appreciate that. So as much as John wants it to be right here, I know we all want that.
Yes.
There's a chance that a lot could still change.
Very predictable on that.
Of course, that's all right.
But they're on financials. Anyone have any other questions? Thank you very much. Next are action items. Yeah. Board policies on second reading. Anyone have any questions? If not, entertain a motion.
I'm going to adopt board policies as presented on second reading.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next is budget amendment. Actually, it's just a budget update, which is essentially what you already spoke about. As I said,
Do we have to
There's
prove
no
that?
action. It said action item is really an update. That's what you said.
It should.
Should have been an action item? It should be.
All right.
So should it be that we're approving the,
Amend the budget to
Amend.
reflect that it is 20%.
slightly higher than the 18.7?
Yeah.
So I moved to approve the 2021 budget to 20% ending balance. You okay with that, Mark?
Second.
There you go.
Yes. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Board member comments?
6 days in, it feels great to have kids in buildings, for one.
6 days in for.
For kids, for kids. So excited like you. I'm excited like you to have kids in buildings. I know that you guys are working hard on all the time. And Jeff, you being humble, appreciate that. But thanks for the hard work. I mean, it is exciting to be back to school and a little bit of normal that we get to have, right? I mean, so thank you guys for your hard work. Tell your teachers the same. I mean, we're very proud to serve with them. And keep it up. And I know unsustainable, hard lift, and I understand that. And we keep it up.
Yeah, I would say all great things. I know Bart mentioned, and I only do this because of teaching at home too, and I know I mentioned a couple of years ago, maybe Ryan, maybe not directly to you, maybe another one of your team support, but he mentioned emails. I think maybe a YouTube out there with something with kids and emails, because all the things that get thrown at them, like phishing, spam, all these different things, if they're not knowing how to do an initial email, that's all the back end stuff. They're going to be like, this must be real. And so that would maybe some sort of education on that side of the fence too, security wise. So,
Well, I know that in junior English, they had a tutorial about how to organize your email box this week, so there is some of that stuff happening.
Yeah, how to
That was
organize.
good for my
Yeah,
junior.
I was just thinking security wise.
I'd like to make sure that you're sending a message to all the staff that they will have people that will complain. They will have people that say that they want more or less or whatever, but naysayers are the loudest. And there are, for every naysayer, 20, 30, 40 people that are completely supportive, but we are not that good at telling them that. So hopefully people will get better at telling them that, but please let them know. There's so much more support than there is negativity.
I want to applaud all the staff, all the administration. I appreciate all the hard work. It's great to hear the stories about the kids in school, following, doing whatever they can to learn. I mean, when you talk about wearing masks, I mean, obviously that's something we had concerns about. That they are doing everything they can to continue to be there is important. And it's a Herculean effort, I know, but I thank you all for that.
Mark actually said, I like the plan, but I would like us all to take a chance. All the teachers are very much. Thank you.
Important dates, next board meeting, October 21st. End of quarter, October 23rd, parent-teacher conferences. Are we going to be doing those in Zoom? I assume. October 27th, half day of school, half day parent-teacher conferences. October 29th, middle school on October entertain a motion for sunshine.
I move for closed session to immediately precede the regular meeting in October, including any record or vote to discuss items and issues allowable under section 610-021 of the Missouri Sunshine Law.
Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yes.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern.
Yes.
Bruce Weiser,
Yes.
Susan Morgan,
Yes?
Mark Kelly.
Yes.